Good morning, everybody, and a warm welcome to this FSB webinar on the AI era is here. Are you ready? My name is Katie Smythe. I'm the Development Manager at FSB, and I will be your host for the session. Today, I am joined by Dominic Kos, co-founder of CleverFox, and Sami Mansour, also co-founder of CleverFox, who will deliver an insightful and practical session on integrating AI into your business, designed to help you understand where and how to start. Today's session will be recorded and shortly available on our on-demand service on the FSB website in case you want to watch it again. If you aren't yet an FSB member, we'd love the opportunity to talk to you about joining up. So please have a little look at our website, www.fsb.org.uk, to book a meeting with our membership advisor. So without further ado, I will pass you over to CleverFox for this wonderful webinar. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you can all hear me. Sammy, if you could share the slides, then I can't get them to work from my end.
Absolutely. Morning, everyone. Welcome to webinar.
Yes, bear with me a second.
Okay. Can everyone see the slide all right?
Yeah, excellent. So on to the next one. So good morning. The AI era is here. Indeed, and are you ready? My name is Dominic Kos. I'm joined today by my colleague Sami Mansour. We are the co-founders of CleverFox. Next slide, please, Sami. So what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to talk about why it's not too late to benefit from this forthcoming AI revolution, how you can create some simple AI automations to save time and money, how you can give your HR manager or your sales manager, or indeed yourself, 40% of your time back. Give you an example of how we're saving one of our customers a fortune by redesigning a decades-old workflow with AI. Then we're going to cover some important issues around compliance and forthcoming regulations. And then I'm going to get my crystal ball out and paint a pretty picture for you around what your soon-to-be AI-enabled business will look like. So super quick introduction from us. We are an AI transformation and implementation agency. Sammy and I started the company in April of 2023. We knew that every business in every sector would be adopting AI at some point in the next couple of years. And we felt that we would be able to help businesses to make that transition and to give them their time back to concentrate on what they do best. In the summer of last year, we appointed our chairman, John Pearson. John has a really interesting background. He co-founded Virgin Radio with Richard Branson back in the 90s. He led the sale of Virgin Radio. He later joined Shazam, the music app you might be familiar with, as chairman, and they built that up and they sold it to Apple. So really excited to have John on board. With his help, we think we'll be able to help lots and lots of businesses to maximize this opportunity from AI. So the last couple of years, we've been working with what we call our early adopter clients and working across a whole range of projects, from fairly basic customer service chatbots and information retrieval systems up to very complex multi-layered systems. One example, which our customer believes is a world first innovation in the veterinary sector, and we're solving a universal problem that every company in that sector globally suffers from. So quite exciting. Won't be talking about that one today. That is, of course, top secret. So next slide, please, Sammy. So this is going to be a non-technical webinar. I don't want to bore you to death. Computer science is quite a dry topic, let's be honest. But the outcomes that we can achieve from AI are super exciting, and that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So if I can enable your light bulb moment, I hope to be able to do that for you. So what do we want as business owners? We want more time and more money. And fortunately for us, the promise of AI for small businesses is going to deliver exactly that. Next slide. So where are we in 2025? Well, let's be honest, things are a little bit grim for the UK at the moment. We've had Brexit, we've had lockdown, we've had zero growth. We're now under pretty severe tax burden, and it is a challenging time. However, next slide, Sammy. However, we really are at the forefront of the most transformative technological revolution since the launch of the internet. And if you're a business owner, which most of you on the call today will be, I really think we should be jumping up and down with excitement about what this technology will bring to our businesses. So we are entering a golden age of productivity. And as we always say to our customers, AI enables us to become superhuman versions, turbocharged versions of ourselves. You'll all be familiar with the Charles Darwin quote. It's not the strongest of the species or the most intelligent that survive. It's the ones most adaptable to change. So we're about to go through the most dramatic change in the workplace, probably in our lifetimes. And the question is, are you going to embrace that change? Are you going to bury your head in the sand, or are you going to dive head first and get involved? So the last couple of years, we've had very low levels of adoption across businesses. Particularly in the UK, we have the lowest levels of adoption across the US, France, Germany, and Spain. So that's kind of echoed in this recent Microsoft study, which shows that a majority of business owners agree they need to adopt AI to stay competitive, but they haven't seen the quantifiable ROI and they haven't made that investment yet. But what we'll see now with agentic AI coming through this year is widespread adoption. That is generally the consensus. You might have seen Mr. Starmer's recent press conference a couple of weeks ago announcing the government's AI Opportunities Action Plan. What does that mean? Well, there are some growth zones which are going to provide those energy connections for infrastructure development. There's going to be some data centers, £12 billion investment, 11,000 jobs created. The government and the civil service intend to use AI internally to streamline their own processes. We're going to have a national data library, and there'll be an energy council formed to ensure that the energy demands can be met. You might have seen over the other side of the pond, Mr. Trump's announcement with OpenAI of a $500 billion investment, again in infrastructure, the Stargate initiative. Now, with this announcement, we really felt that the US are totally dominating AI, right? All of the main players are in the US, and then out of nowhere, this week, Sammy.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think what happened this week just illustrates how fast the pace of change is in this industry. So on, what was it, 5 days ago, 6 days ago, Trump announced his Stargate initiative, 500 billion. 2 days later, DeepSeek's OpenAI open source platform comes out, wipes off 500 billion in market cap, as we've all seen this week in the news. So the pace of change in this industry is like nothing we've ever seen before.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the reality of DeepSeek, it shocked everyone, it shocked the markets. But in reality, I don't think Western companies are going to start building enterprise or consumer apps on a Chinese API. I don't think, rightly or wrongly, Western companies probably don't trust the Chinese to do that. So there is a place for DeepSeek, and perhaps on a consumer level, as a sort of ChatGPT alternative, it will have some success. But it's certainly going to be interesting to see how the US-China AI wars pan out. Let's hope it stays in the digital realm. So we are right at the cusp of a once-in-a-generation platform shift. We're moving from the SaaS software era of the last 25 years into the AI era, and we're going to see a lot of disruption. We are already, as we just mentioned. So as a small business owner, I've given you a bit of context there around the market. As a small business owner, what can you do? The way that we always recommend to our clients to approach AI adoption is not to look at blanket rollout across your entire company at once, unless you're particularly confident. But what we're looking to do is solve individual problems and inefficiencies. So what should you look out for? The repetitive tasks that you and your team are undertaking daily, any manual processing of data, and any obvious workflow bottlenecks where your team are getting involved and spending much of their day. So typically, often you'll have customer service as an example. But here, let me show you three very quick examples of very simple AI systems that you can use. So this is an example of a customer of ours. It's the Girls Brigade. They are a charity, and basically their senior management team were getting a load of calls and emails from their team asking them how to do their jobs, essentially. And they would refer them to their policy document, which is a big, clunky 400-page PDF. And it was so inaccessible that the team were calling them up going, how do I run a residential? How do I do a risk assessment? So the client asked us, can we build an AI system that can basically give them that information very, very quickly? And that's exactly what we've done. So the team can now essentially just ask the company's knowledge base, how do I do X? How do I do Y? And very simply, it responds. Another very simple example, a typical, let's say, coaching business, or I know there's a lot of personal trainers in the FSB network. You might be spending up to 6 hours a week on your social media marketing. It's probably your key channel. We can create a very simple AI automation that once set up, and it's quite inexpensive to do this. Once you've set that up, you might be spending 10 minutes a day just managing the output, checking the output before you send that live across your channels. And then you've got 5 hours a week of your time back. That's 20 hours a month. That's 2.5 full work days. What will you do with that time? So you probably heard about the power of data, the importance of data in the context of AI. Now, when you started your businesses, you probably weren't consciously accumulating data. It just kind of happens in the background as you go about your daily business life. And actually what AI is particularly good at is analyzing vast data sets and finding the trends, the insights in that data in a way that a human never possibly could. So most businesses, small and large, still have their data siloed in various different databases and softwares and spreadsheets. None of it talks to each other. It's very ineffective in this way, and it doesn't allow for proper interrogation. So what we recommend to many of our clients is a data centralization project. So if you think about all the disparate sources of data that you've got, what we want to do is run that through a ETL process, which is extract, transform, and load. So we're reformatting all of those different sources of data into a uniform structure. That means that when it sits in your data warehouse centrally, you can cross-reference all of that data, and you have your single source of truth. So we've taken your unstructured data, all the different sources, and we've cleaned it up, and it's become structured data. And now you can interrogate that at a really sophisticated level, and you can plug in your AI tools and your business intelligence and so on. So here's a really simple example again of a way to look at gathering and leveraging data. So I imagine most of you are conducting your meetings online, a bit like how we are this morning. And if you're not doing this already, I highly recommend that you record your calls with an AI note taker. We use Fireflies. You can use various others. There's loads of tools on the market. Now, there's obvious reasons for doing this. You don't have to manually take notes, but also you should be looking at your meetings, every meeting you have, as a gathering of data exercise, right? So imagine a year's worth of your meetings, your prospect meetings, your customer calls, all of the conversations you have is data. Now, imagine at the end of the quarter or end of the year, you can take the summary of the transcripts of those calls, feed it into ChatGPT, and ask it to find correlations, to find trends. ChatGPT will come back to you and say, do you know what? A majority of your customers have mentioned that rising energy costs are impacting their margins. And you think, great, okay, well, how can I then match my products and services to somehow offset that challenge. Now, you wouldn't physically remember yourself that X, Y, and Z customer mentioned that over the course of a year. But again, what we're doing is we're gathering data and we're using AI to interrogate that data, and it's pulling out value, which you can then help your customers with and make money from. So AI automation, another hot topic. Next slide, please, Sammy. Another really simple example is to create an automation around your proposal creation. I don't know if you have already, some of you would have already played around with the custom GPT function where you can create your own tools within ChatGPT. And all you need to do is input your company's website services page so it knows what your products are and it knows your tone of voice. You upload a proposal for it to replicate the structure, and then you just copy and paste that call transcript, which will have the action points from the meeting. It'll have your prospects' pain points, and then bang, at a click of a button, your proposal is generated. Very, very simple, very effective, great time saver. Here's another real world example for you, and particularly in the world of accountancy and the legal sector, huge opportunity for leverage of AI. Now, again, we're talking about turning the manual processing of data, which has been done by humans, and automating that with AI. So this VAT consultancy, they help their customers who trade internationally across different tax jurisdictions, and their consultants are spending 50% of their work week literally scrolling through spreadsheets and summarizing these financial statements. And then they spend the other 50% of their time doing the actual money-making work, which is to create their bespoke recommendations. Now, that seems ridiculous to us. And so we will be creating that AI-powered workflow that will automate that reviewing and summarizing part. They will then spend probably 10% of their time checking the output is correct. But then so they can literally spend 90% of their time making the money-making recommendations. So essentially doubling the team's output. They can take on twice as many clients without having to hire additional staff. So you can imagine the financial impact. And also for the team, they get to do the interesting part of the job where they use their intellect and their experience. They're not just doing the boring admin. Another really simple example here is creating an AI automation for content repurposing. A lot of our clients have got a load of blogs on their website that they've sat there for years, or you might have YouTube videos, and you can use AI to repurpose those, to chop them up and create a sequence of cold emails or some Instagram posts. So again, it's a way of using AI to repurpose the assets and the data that you already have sitting there. So here's a more complex example. Again, a real world example. Now, this client is not a small business, but I show you this example so that you can understand the concept of how you can redesign a workflow for the AI era. So I know that 50% of you will have a pet, as I do. And so you'll understand that a vet consultation, you take your cat to the vets, that consultation has been the same for about 40 years since the emergence of the PC in the mid-80s. So let's say you take your cat to the vets for an 11 o'clock appointment. At 5 to 11, your vet is frantically scrolling through the CRM, trying to find out who's coming next, why am I seeing this cat, what am I doing, right? And that's a manual processing of data. So of course, our AI tool at the click of a button will create that two paragraph summary relative to the type of consultation. So if it's a minor operation, that data will be appropriate. If it's a vaccination, it will be different. So that saves that process. Then typically after your consultation, you've walked out and the vet is manually typing up the clinical notes into the CRM. Again, inefficient. So we now be running an audio recording through the consultation, again, gathering data. So no data is missed, no information is missed. And then by the time you get back to your car, bang, there's an email. Hi, Mr. Cost. Great to see you today. Betsy the cat has had this vaccination. See you in 6 months' time. So the customer gets that nice experience. And what you've done is two things. You've gathered data in terms of all the information about the animal's welfare and the treatments, and you've automated that process, and you've saved the vet about 8 minutes of admin. Now they're doing 15 consultations a day. That's about 2 hours of admin saved per vet per day, and that's a whole lot of money saved across the year. Now, let's imagine a year down the line, a new arthritis treatment is released. Now, what I forgot to mention is from that audio transcription, this is where the AI tool is doing something kind of rather clever. It takes that transcription of the conversations had in the call, and it turns them into structured data. It puts that into specific fields into the system. So that means that you can interrogate the data at a later date. So let's say a new arthritis treatment is released. Now this company's got 200,000 patients. Because we've centralized their data in a data warehouse, we can now interrogate that entire database, and we want to look for any patients that might benefit from this arthritis treatment. So that's patients with arthritis, who've had arthritis, or even who show the precursor to arthritis, which is obesity. So let's say that we can pull out 24,000 patients, and we can send them an email marketing sequence. And if just 3% of the 24,000 buy that arthritis treatment, that's £500,000 of revenue from that dormant data. More importantly, the patients are getting the care that they need. So again, you can see we're gathering data, we're interrogating that data with AI, and we're extracting value, both customer value and revenue. So the hot topic of 2025 is, of course, AI agents. I imagine you've heard about these. For us, it's really where AI is starting to come into its own and live up to the hype. So agents are digital workers. They are systems that you can set a desired outcome for, and they will execute the task. So we kind of describe them as digital colleagues that work alongside your human team. They use APIs to connect to various data sources. So you would select desired outcome. You can access these 3 bits of data. Off you go, and that task can be done. Next slide. So here's an example. We've all had the scenario where you flush the toilet at 7 o'clock in the morning, you're rushing out the door for work, and the toilet doesn't stop flushing, and you're thinking, Christ, that's going to cost me money. You phone the plumber, but it's 7 in the morning, the plumber doesn't answer, and it goes to voicemail. The plumber misses that contact, that potential customer. Now, what you'll see this year, these are already out in the marketplace, are these AI voice agents. So any out of hours call, the AI voice agent answers the call. Hi, Mr. Koss, what's the problem? You explain. It says, oh, by the way, now the AI agent is connected to the plumber's knowledge base and can access this information in real time. And it will say, by the way, go down the back of the toilet, there's a little circular knob, turn it anti-clockwise. That will stop the water gushing. But we do need to send a plumber. We've got 2 appointments. Do you want 4 o'clock or 6 o'clock? So the customer gets their problem solved at whatever time of day, and that appointment is actually physically booked by the agent because it's connected to the plumber's calendar. So you can see it's actually working like a 24-hour customer service agent, and it's working in a very human-like manner. Very, very exciting. Some other applications for agents. So imagine you're hiring, you've got 2 job ads on LinkedIn, you've had 400 CVs, as is quite typical these days. And rather than your HR person having to manually work through all those, you've got a CV screening agent. So very specifically trained on that role. We can shortlist the candidates and give you those 10 shortlisted candidates. You've got an onboarding agent for when the people start that manages the whole forms and scheduling of training. And you can have an HR assistant agent that can respond to those standard questions that your team will ask. And so what does that mean? It means your HR manager has got 40% of their time back, and they can focus on talent strategy, employee engagement, and all of the more intricate work. Next slide, please. Right, so back in the real world, let's talk about AI regulation. So there's nothing in place at the moment for AI. We're expecting a bill in the next few weeks, the AI safety bill. So currently you have to kind of follow GDPR and any consumer protection regulations that you already follow, and anything sector specific. We are apparently in this country aiming for a light touch pro-innovation approach. We shall see how that comes through in the coming weeks. So why do I mention the EU AI Act in Brexit Britain? If your business is developing or deploying AI for the EU market, then you will fall under this act, and you've got to then start classifying your AI systems in the way that is listed there. So it's very important to understand if you do fall under that act. I think the majority of businesses won't, but important to check. Next slide, Sammy. In terms of compliance, you've got to ensure your systems are ethical, unbiased, adhere to GDPR. And actually, your company does hold liability for any harm caused by your AI systems. So you'll need to get some risk management processes and accountability structures in place. Definitely recommend looking at AI liability insurance for obvious reasons. Next slide, Sammy. So yeah, I guess what you need to be doing is looking at these regular compliance audits, and you'll need to be doing these data protection impact assessments, which are required under GDPR anyway. Now, you could look at external accreditations like ISO. There's a new ISO 42001, which is the AI ISO. I've actually been approached by an ISO provider, so we might be partnering with a company there. So if that's an option you want to look at, then we can potentially help with that. So that's the boring bit over. Let's get back to the sexy sci-fi world of AI. So let's think about how we operate computers. If you think about it, personal computer came out in the 80s, and Steve Jobs there is posing with a monitor and a keyboard. And 40 years later, here we are, still typing into a keyboard, still looking at a monitor. Kind of crazy if you think of it that way. And we're limited by the input bandwidth, how fast we can tell computers what we want. And what do we do all day? We're flipping between our email, our CRMs, our spreadsheets, and we're typing and we're clicking and we're copying and pasting. And we're kind of manually operating these computers in a very clunky way, although we just take it for granted that that's how it is. So what will agentic AI bring? The ability for us to simply talk to our computers, tell them what we want via these AI agents, and they will complete the task for us. So let me give you an example. Let's go back one, Sammy. Let me give you an example. Let's say, for example, you are a B2B sales consultancy, and it's Friday afternoon, 5 o'clock. You're thinking, great, I can have a glass of wine in a minute. And out the blue, your prospect calls you and says, hey, Dom, sorry to bother you on a Friday afternoon. I've actually got a meeting with my senior management on Monday at 10 o'clock, and we're going to be talking about your proposal. But they've asked me for a load of other information. So can you send me a report on, a year's forecast of what your solution will give to us? They want to see your solution compared to your main 3 competitors, and whatever else information. And normally you'd be thinking, oh Christ, well that's my weekend gone. And actually, rather than having to open up the CRM, find the proposal, go online, search all the websites of the competitors, copy and paste that text, and create that document yourself. Next slide, Sammy. What you'll actually do is go, hi, Andrew, the agent, please compile me that report on the customer, David. These are the criteria, bang. And the AI agent will go off and it will have access to the data sources, and it will create that document for you. Now that sounds great, right? I really think that is brilliant. I guess the way to think of it is when you need to produce some work, your AI agents, in the most part, will be able to do that for you. You just have to instruct them rather than physically compiling that report yourself. So yeah, just as calculators freed us up from calculating maths manually, AI agents will free us from manually operating computers by hand. This is a huge, huge step forward. So let's fast forward to January 2026. And let's imagine what your business might look like. So you've got your agents and automations in place. You're now leveraging digital labor Your team and your agents are working together in tandem. You've amplified your productivity. Your margins are up. Your sales are up. Your team are enjoying their work more than ever. And the time that you saved, you've come up with some new product lines. You're looking at new markets. It's a whole different world. Great. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you've got some value there. I hope I didn't race through that too quickly. Our offer for you today to help you get started on your AI journey is a complimentary AI opportunity assessment. This is where we will help you to figure out where you can start and where you can create immediate value. So that's a 45-minute video call with us, and then we'll send you a personalized report outlining the areas where we think you should start. So please get in contact, give us a call or send me an email. I look forward to hearing from some of you. And now we'll take your questions.
That was great. Thank you so much, Dom. And the questions are coming thick and fast. So there is a lot of questions around the security, around recording, around transcribing. First of all, Kathy has asked, is it risky putting any information into AI? Would that be something that could get lost, or do you believe it's risky?
I can take that, Tom, if you want.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it depends on obviously the sensitivity of the data and the application that you're using it in. I wouldn't advise putting any sensitive data into ChatGPT, for instance, but on the flip side, every major enterprise is leveraging AI in some capacity across their data set. So there are levels of security, obviously making sure that's implemented the correct way. There's the correct security protocols around your databases and what you're allowing access to. It is completely safe within those environments. You can get kind of ring-fenced AI, which doesn't live necessarily on the cloud if you're dealing with super sensitive data, but it just completely depends on the type of application and the type of sensitivity around data.
Okay, and Derek has asked, do you have to make everybody else on the call or on the meeting aware that you are recording or transcribing? I guess transcribing is the one really, because the recording generally pops up, but
it's polite to do so, of course. Certainly in our line of work, it's our customer usually is also recording the call, so it just goes unmentioned because it's become kind of standard practice. But I think you should, out of politeness, just let your customer know, for sure.
And Alison has asked, is there an amount that you can feed into ChatGPT?
There is a limit, so there's a token limit. Again, you can buy more tokens. It does really vary on the application. So if it's for single use, I think it's like a 4,000 token limit, which probably relates to like maybe kind of around 10,000 words, something like that. But you can upgrade. You can get some of the enterprise models or some of the professional models, which are a bit more expensive, have much higher token limits, token rates. And again, if you're using it at mass across a business, then some of the enterprise packages are almost limitless.
Would they be paid for, or the ones that you can access online for free? Or that's for my benefit because I don't know.
So anything for personal use, free is more than enough unless you're really like pushing a huge amount of data. For businesses, so you pay by the request. So for some of our bigger projects, we set up kind of token-based transactions with the back end of ChatGPT, and it is really inexpensive. It's probably under about £100 a month, and that's for a huge amount of data being pushed through. So compared to some of the other applications and some of the other softwares that they're paying for, AI is relatively cheap. And kind of as we mentioned within that presentation, there's a lot more open source. So the AI kind of code base is becoming more readily available to other suppliers, so it's going to get even cheaper.
Okay. So I'm going to do both ends here. So this is on the same field. With regard tax consultancy, how would workers check the accuracy of AI summaries without actually reading the documents? Is that possible, or what?
Good question.
So with that,
it's not
project,
mine. It's
Yeah.
anonymous.
yeah. So with that particular project that we worked on, and actually with most of the projects we work on, the kind of the bar of human checking is a lot higher initially. So through kind of a 3-month testing period to test the quality, to make sure everything's set up correctly, to really put eyes on all of the output before it goes out. But then over time, as we've iterated and the quality of the work becomes more consistent, you can check less, but you can set the parameters. You can see what you're checking without having to recheck the whole document through quite a stringent testing process. And it's like a test and iterate process, which normally lasts around 3 months. And then you can get to a place where you're checking with potentially just the really core bits, and you'll be safe in the knowledge that you've done enough testing that most of it should be fine.
If you remember when the internet first came to be widely used around the turn of the millennium, we were all a bit worried about putting our debit card details into a website and making a transaction. Now we don't think twice, do we? So there is that initial period where, as somebody says, we've got to keep a close eye on the output, but soon it will be good enough that we won't need to.
So I'm going to go right back to the beginning with this one. This is from Claire. She's asked, is ChatGPT the best place to start, or is there a different platform?
Personally, there's a bunch of them, but personally, I still use ChatGPT. I think from a user interface perspective, I'm just accustomed to it now, and I have the easiest interactions. I'd start small, but my kind of best advice in terms of adopting AI is just play with it. Every time you're going to do a task, just chuck it through ChatGPT, see if it can help you, and have a dialogue with it. So its first response is normally not what you expect. So I wouldn't just bin it off and say, right, that's not going to work anymore. You need to talk to it as if you were talking to, I think, probably a bit older than a toddler, but like a 10-year-old, and you talk, and you're really prescriptive about what you want, how you want it, and then you'll get into that pattern. And I'm sure a lot of you have already used it to great effect. But yeah, ChatGPT is my favorite still.
I think there is some consensus that Claude from Anthropic is slightly better in its sort of creation of copy, but I mean, I think the difference between the systems is minimal.
Okay, so this is a question around DeepSeek. I'm just reading it because I don't really know what it is. But do you see an opportunity for building AI apps using the model rather than relying on the platform? And what specific barriers might hinder this in this context?
100%. So personally, I'm super excited by it because it's not ring fence. OpenAI don't have a monopoly on it anymore, or the big players don't have such a monopoly. It will become more available, and people can build locally. So that, for me personally, is super exciting. The barrier to that, though, is the knowledge base around using it. So the benefit of using some of the bigger players is that their UI and how you plug into that is super easy. To start to adopt something like DeepSeek locally, you're going to need to have expert knowledge around it, and I think there's going to be a big demand for that as it becomes open source. Everyone's going to want their own local version of an AI system, and there will be a shortage of expertise in terms of implementing it.
I have a question on this, and this is personally from me. What's DeepSeek? And all of you are going, I know what it is, but I still don't.
No one knew what it was on Monday.
No, exactly.
Okay.
Well, I mean, some people did. I just about did, and I'm really heavily in the industry. So DeepSeek is basically China's a Chinese AI company, and the reason why it's on the top of everyone's mind at the moment is because I can't remember what day it was in the week. It's been a whirlwind of a week, but they basically released their code base to everyone, so open source, and then they allowed developers free access to the back end of their system. So then all developers can then take that, work on it locally, create their own models. And so now that's meant that OpenAI, for instance, can't charge as much for their premium platforms because also it is competing at the same level. So
It's outperforming. So it's an equivalent to ChatGPT, but it's outperformed ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, Llama from Meta at various different tests. It's better. Now, the fact is that they've basically created it by copying over ChatGPT and the other platforms, particularly Llama, because that's open source from Meta. So they have taken what exists and they've improved it, to be fair to the Chinese, and which is good because now actually what they've done particularly impressively is bring down the compute processing cost. So they're doing it way cheaper. So that means that the American companies will then copy them how they've done that. And actually what it will do for everybody is bring down the cost of accessing AI for everyone, which is great.
Okay. So we've got a couple of questions about governance. I know you did touch on it, and also EU regulations. Would you suggest sort of any specific places to go and find that out? Because I imagine it's changing pretty rapidly.
Yeah, so I mean the government website is there, obviously. There's not a lot of information there yet because this stuff is very new. So as I say, there is no official AI regulation in the UK as yet. We're expecting it within a month or so. I think the way to think about protecting yourself is just to have select a team member to be head of compliance and regulation adherence, and then and have a set an hour a week where that person is checking that the systems fall within regulations or within expected compliance, and just so you're sort of regularly keeping on top of it. In reality, it's so early that much of it doesn't exist yet. So really kind of just keep an eye on the news.
Okay, great. I've got a question here which applies to a lot of our members. What can AI do for a one-man band or a sole trader or micro business? How can they use it and access it?
Well, this is the exciting thing with the emergence of AI agents, because a one-man band can become $1 billion company now, and you will have heard Sam Altman talk about this. We will see the first one-person $1 billion company. Why is that? Because you can create a marketing function, a sales function that is automated via AI agents. You set the task that they are to perform, and they will execute on that. So a one-person company now can have the output of having a 5-person marketing team or a 5-person sales team by introducing AI agents to do much of the work. Now you will have to manage the agents. So you could have as I say, HR agent, 3 or 4 or 5 sales team agents, and you can actually build out a company, and people are doing it already, which is one person and a load of AI agents doing much of the work. Now you're managing your team of agents. And what I've heard recently someone describing that IT departments of the future will be HR departments for agents. And they'll basically be looking after these agents. And so, a solo entrepreneur can work, and leverage the productivity of AI agents to create a big business that is 100% doable now. And that's the first time in history that's been possible.
I think even as a lower barrier to entry than that, just those repetitive tasks. So I know a lot of friends who own their own kind of one-man businesses, and they spend 50% of the time doing what they're specialists in, and 50% of the time doing admin and finance and things that they're not specialists in. Now there are off-the-shelf tools that you can literally sign off, no code or anything like that. Log in, set up these workflows, and it will free up your time. So I think it's probably more powerful for a one-man band than any other company size, because you'll be able to grow focus on the growth of your business and customer service.
Excellent. Okay, I've got a question from Anonymous here. In terms of storage, if I use intelligence automation, which options should I consider?
Intelligence optimizations, was that?
Automation, it says.
I'm not familiar with the term as such, but I assume if
Oh,
we're
come on,
talking,
how do you not know this? I know this.
yeah,
Jokes.
I was going to ask you for the answer then.
I have no. Well, I'll tell you what, let's move on to another question. How about a website? Can it build me a website? Can AI build me a website?
Absolutely. Yeah. They exist already. You can actually use a voice interaction and tell an AI system, build me a website for my fashion brand. We focus on retro styles from the 1980s. Bang. And it will take that.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, Dom. Yeah, it can actually build you a whole app now. No code, no developers. A prompt can build you an app.
Where would you start with that?
So there's a bunch of tools that kind of do it. ChatGPT is also, they have a playground option. It's called Playground, and within that, it does take learning. I'd start, if you want to do it yourself, there is a bit of a learning curve to get there. I know it's like a lot of people saying you can really easily make a website with it. It like all of this, it will take some back and forth in terms of what you ask it, how you ask it. But I'd start off on YouTube. I literally just type into YouTube, how do I create a website using OpenAI? And there'll be a step-by-step process there. Or you can ask ChatGPT. So you start off with ChatGPT, you ask it how to do it, and it will direct you on how to do it. And within an hour or two, you'll probably have a website and an app.
That's wild.
Yeah.
This message is from Claire. This question's, oh God, it's disappeared. Where's it gone? Can you create simple custom AIs on Google Gemini for Workspace or Chat GPT? Custom AIs.
Yeah, really simple, and that's what Tom touched on one of the slides. Again, it's a setting on the left-hand side. You literally just click Custom GPT, and what that means for anyone who doesn't know what that is just a prompt that's saved. So you would just tell it, right? So actually, what I do personally, I still use it. I put all of my insurance kind of documents around my car, anything to do with my car, and I've created a custom GPT called My Mechanic. And I've just uploaded 6 or 7 PDFs, all of and then now if I ever need to remember my insurance policy number, I just type in what's my policy number and bring it up for me, or when's my renewal date and it brings it up for me. So I've got about 6 or 7 of these little custom GPTs, and super useful for just your personal admin, and it takes about 10 minutes to set up, so really recommend doing that. In terms of using for Gemini Workspace, you can set up the custom GPT in OpenAI. I haven't done it on Gemini, but I'm sure you can do.
Okay. There's a lot of questions and worries about regulation, about governance, and about security. And Liz has asked, she said she's heard that DeepSeek can track your typing strokes and therefore passwords. Is this true?
I don't know, to be 100% honest with that. I think it sounds like a lot of the terms and conditions that you're accepting on most platforms, there will be some kind of keystroke probably tracking, but
the good thing is that now, T's and C's have always deliberately been opaque and 25 pages long, and no one can be bothered to, we've all signed yes to the iPhone T's and C's, and God knows what we've accepted. Now you can copy and paste those into ChatGPT. Give me a summary in 10 lines or whatever, or give me a summary, what is the security look like here? So I think it's really important to choose wisely, and actually that's something that we spend a lot of time doing for our clients is when we decide which tool we're going to recommend, an existing AI tool, we go through the T's and C's painstakingly, and then we'll choose a tool. That'll be one of the criteria that we select. It is important.
Yes, it's a huge part of our process. So personally, like as a company, we're not planning on leveraging DeepSeek just yet. Obviously, just let the dust settle, let the industry understand where the gaps are, where any backdoors are, anything like that, before we'd ever recommend implementing it. But it's still so early on, it's hard to know all of that.
Okay. This one's from Leanne. It says, can AI look at written forms and enter data onto an app or spreadsheet?
Yes.
Yes.
That's
It can.
bread
Yeah.
and butter. Yeah.
How?
I mean, it can read pretty much anything. It can read handwriting, really bad handwriting, and you can chuck it into an AI system and then prompt it properly, structure the prompts. We use a thing called schema, which basically is telling what prompt to fill out in which bit. We set up these systems, and it can take any type of media you've got, whether that's audio, image, video, decipher what it is, and then populate it as we structure it. But like Dom said, it's bread and butter. That's where we're seeing the most value, right? It's turning these are unstructured data pots, putting them into this system and then having the output as we want. That's kind of what we do.
So you would maybe suggest that kind of thing. Would that be something you would do? Companies would come to you for?
It depends on the scale of the project that whoever asked the question was talking about. But if it's at a personal level, you can put documents, literally upload them, press upload into ChatGPT, and ask it to do what that question is, and it will do it. But if you want that done at bulk across a company or an organization, then that's something we would support with.
Okay. This is a question from Anonymous. What are your favorite examples of making the most of ChatGPT for personal use?
I think I've just given it. I've got about 6 or 7 of them. I've got one for my cat, so all of its kind of vet history until we get our basically what we're building for our vet client, but on a more kind of personal level. I have documents for my cat, I've got documents for work, I've got documents for just personal admin, and it saves me so much time. Custom GPTs.
Thank you. Okay, now I've got a question. If you are an AI, you fear AI, where would you start? I know we said is ChatGPT a good place to start from the person that's never picked up, the AI at all, and they're like, right, what do I do? Where do I start? What would you say?
Dom, I think this might be for you because
I guess I think Sammy's almost answered that already. With the idea of having these personal admin GPTs. I think that's a great idea. I need to start doing that myself. I think it's normal to be fearful of new technology, and every new advancement comes with scaremongering and fear. This one more than ever before, no doubt about that, and understandably so. There is that fear that the robots will take over and then we're all doomed. I think the only way to, like with anything, the only way to understand something properly is to just play around with it. And as Sammy says, so if you can use the free version of ChatGPT, ask it to perform a task for you, ask it for some information, and when it comes back with something, then you, as Sammy said, re-interrogate it. Say, that's not quite right. Actually, can you just summarize it, but do it in a different tone of voice? Or actually, what I was really looking for was something more like X. And then you'll see how your prompting actually gets that system to think in real time. And so, just if the way that I started was whatever I was doing during my day, I would think, can AI do this for me? So if I had to write an email to somebody from scratch, can AI help me? Yes, it can. And I'd get, write me 3 different versions of an email that says X, Y, and Z. So as you're going through your daily tasks, just have that thought. Can AI help with this? And just try it out. That's the best way.
Fabulous. All right. Well, I've got a question. We are coming to the end of our webinar today. So I would like to know your top tips for using AI for small businesses. Now, in FSB, we have manufacturers, we have bakers, we have hospitality. We've got everybody. So some top tips that you could suggest.
Yeah. Well, firstly, I definitely recommend using AI for your marketing purposes. Definitely look at your customer support or customer service function. That's a really easy win. AI can typically handle 80 to 90% of your customer support questions, because typically it's the same 100 questions. So then your customer support person can be doing something more interesting, can actually be calling customers that really need help in person. Then the other thing which I find particularly exciting is this concept of taking all of your disparate sources of data, your old spreadsheets, the old lists of customers that don't buy from you anymore, bring that all together and then run AI through it, and it'll pull out some value, it'll show opportunity for you. You know, every small business owner is sitting on money. It's just in their data. They can't see it because it's in a hard drive somewhere. There's money in there, there's customer value in there. You just need to extract it. So I think that's a big one for small businesses.
When you say run it through, what do you mean run it through ChatGPT, Gemini, or something completely different?
Yeah, exactly. So if you get all of the different sources of data together, your old lists, even your old emails, and then you can, let's say, for example, I'm trying to give a practical example here off the top of my head. Let's say, it's going to be tricky now. Sam, you got one?
Well, I guess the run it through bit is the slightly more complex bit, but Dom is completely right. It starts off with gathering all of this data. You're going to have to do this at some point. It's not the most fun job to do, but get that data, put it into one place, whether that's a Google Drive, whether that's one spreadsheet, however big your data is, start to get it into one place. Now, depending on the size of the data, it depends on what running it through AI means. If it is one Google Drive folder with all of your assets in there, you can do what I did with my car mechanic. You can set up custom GPT and then refer to that drive every time. So you could then ask it, when was the last time I sent an order over 100 loaves of bread? Because it will read that drive in ChatGPT really simply.
I'll give you an example that's just popped into my head. So let's say you find a list of customers that don't buy from you anymore, and you can ask ChatGPT to categorize the reasons why they said no. So you're too expensive, I've gone with someone else, I don't need your services anymore. Create those 3 cohorts of customers, right? And then you go, right, the ones that are price sensitive, let's market to them with something that's really based around value and low cost. The ones that don't need your service anymore, let's get in contact with them and let's see what other services they might need from us. So I guess the categorization of the data is powerful too.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. That's been absolutely wonderful. And that has taken us to the end of our webinar. So thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Unfortunately, all the time is up. So if you have found today's webinar useful, please have a little look at the website and also give us a Trustpilot review. I would just like to say a massive thank you to Dom and to Sammy for their help today. And if you aren't a member of FSB and you'd like to have some more information, please get in contact on www.fsb.org.uk to book a meeting with our membership advisor. Thank you again, Dom and Sam, and thank you everyone for joining us. Bye.
Thanks everyone. Have a great day.